Hello and welcome to Sunday Summary. This is for September 22nd, 2019, and I am a couple weeks behind. I was meaning to do it last week. I just never got around to it, and now we're a couple weeks off. But I wanted to record it, if nothing else, just to kind of have the record of things in place, and then like when I go back in 3 years and review these readings, I'll have at least record of what I did. So if nothing else, it's a record for me to know what I talked about here on the Sunday of September 22nd, where we heard about the parable of the unjust steward, which Jesus uses in his parables all kinds of strange examples for people in his stories. He talks about a Samaritan who's good, which was a foreign concept to people. He talks about a son who is bad but then repentant, and the prodigal son. So all kinds of interesting characters. And so this week we had the character of the unjust steward, who is possibly one of the weirdest. What I talked about in the homily was, this was a week and a half ago now, so I'm pulling back what I was talking about, was the movie Catch Me If You Can, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks, about Frank Abagnale, who was this criminal. By the time he was, I believe 18 years old, he was already a doctor, a lawyer, and a pilot, and but all of that illegally. He never really actually got the official degrees, but he impersonated these things, and he was able to con all kinds of money and all kinds of people with this money, and wrote all these fake checks and everything. And it's a funny movie to watch because, as I'm watching the movie, at least as it's presented by Steven Spielberg, who is the director, you're rooting for the criminal, because Leonardo DiCaprio, in his presentation of Frank Abagnale, is kind of a sympathetic character. And you know what he's doing is wrong, but you can't help but think, hey, that's pretty darn clever as well. And so kind of the idea of the parable of the unjust steward, who goes and he cheats out money of all kinds of people, is that the key phrase is here. I'll read it again. For the children of this world are more prudent in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And so the idea is, Frank Abagnale knows how to deal, or knew how to deal with the people of this world and to get what he needed to get done. And how much more should we, by the grace of our baptisms and by the grace of confirmation, should we be able to use the talents and the gifts that we have been given, the gift of the Holy Spirit, all those gifts of the Holy Spirit, the presence of Jesus Christ, the presence of the sacraments, all those things? Shouldn't we be really good about caring about these things? And as Frank Abagnale, at least in the movie, he was pushed to the very edge of, it's like there's no way out. There's no way he's going to escape from this, and yet he does, because he's so clever. How much more should we? When it sometimes feels like things are impossible, we're living in this day and age when it might seem impossible for us to live as Christians, as Catholics, and to live in this world that is so consumeristic and materialistic and so caught up in sex and alcohol and all these things. It seems impossible to live as good, faithful Catholics. And yet, the point kind of this steward is the unjust steward found a way. Frank Abagnale would find a way. How much more should we, as good, faithful Catholics, should we find a way to live faithfully, not at all compromising who we are as Catholics, as followers of Jesus, as disciples of Jesus, but able to communicate that truth and that love to today's generation? I think that's the evangelical call for every generation, to figure out, how do I bring the good news, which is eternal, which goes for all generations, but always seems irrelevant to the current day? How do I make it relevant and practical and applicable to today's world? So there is a way to do it, and we have to use all those skills, all those gifts that we have been given, to use maybe that some of the cleverness to say, okay, this is how we're going to connect it. So that's what we are challenged to do here. So that's my Sunday summary for September the 22nd of 2019, and I hope that you have a blessed week.